Sweet fart on rice. Ugh. It's the news, baby. How are you? You look well. Me, I'm doing great. Good mood, Cody. Maybe that's because I drank some Robitussin I found at the docks, or maybe it's because you like this video and subscribe to our channel. You did do that, didn't you? You're always there for me, just like my Robitussin. Anyway, Donald Trump is dead! Politically, sorry. He's politically dead. I'm talking about the fact that, thanks in part to a very unpopular war, Trump is hemorrhaging supporters even faster than his administration is losing staff. And his administration is hemorrhaging staff certainly faster than I'm getting to the point. According to one poll from the University of Massachusetts, Trump not only has a dismally low approval rating, but the number of Trump voters who have grown to regret their decision has increased as well. Trump, it seems, has really been disappointing his base. Even after the last assassination attempt, which you'd assume would gain him a little sympathy, America is still giving him a resounding boo. Maybe he thinks they're shouting boo room, because even some of his supporters think he just faked the assassination attempt to get his ballroom. He's cooked, etc. No, not because of the pedophile stuff, or the crime, or the racism, or the authoritarian rhetoric and actions, or all the war crimes, or all the clearly incompetent people he's put in positions of power, or when he let a Nazi billionaire get access to our social security information while gutting the government, or the other crimes, or the sexual assault he's most certainly done, and even kind of admitted to, which is also a crime, or when he looked directly into a solar eclipse, or insulted prisoners of war, or the open misogyny, you can't forget all of that, or that pandemic he botched, which killed a lot of people. None of that. It's the gas prices. That did it! Also, posting an image of himself as Jesus Christ while getting into a one-sided fight with the Pope. As opposed to all the other times he posted slop comparing himself to Jesus, which I guess was fine. Or when he held up a Bible for a photo op while people were getting tear-gassed off camera. But hey, whatever gets people there, I guess. Fool me 600 times, shame on me. Fool me can't get fooled again and 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 again. So, let's sit back and watch, because here's some news. The rats are leaving the MAGA ship that they built. But maybe he'll turn it around. So to be clear, this episode isn't about your aunt or grandpa or grandpa who suddenly deleted all their Facebook posts about how Trump is going to save us from the Antichrist and replace them with posts about how Trump is the Antichrist. No, we're saving that video for the holidays when everyone's confined in small hot kitchens together. Because what I'd much rather focus on is all the rats. The people who worked tirelessly to spread MAGA propaganda, infect the public, and are now leaving the ship. I don't know, something about rats infecting people on a ship feels especially relevant, these days. And now these high-profile right-wing personalities are loudly turning against Trump. Trump, who appears to be unraveling before our eyes, who has never thought to apologize for anything he's ever done, and instead has always demanded unquestioning loyalty in the face of a blatant lie. Oh, you see, he didn't post AI slop of himself as Jesus Christ. That was clearly a picture of him as a doctor.
Mr. President, did you post that picture of yourself depicted as Jesus Christ?
Well, it wasn't depicted. It was me. I did post it, and I thought it was me as a doctor, and had to do with Red Cross as a Red Cross worker there, which we support. And only the fake news could come up with that one.
Only the fake news would come up with something like Donald Trump depicted himself as Jesus Christ because he shared an image of himself dressed in robes with light coming from one of his hands while the other hand heals a sick person. Also, a demon is flying behind him. Real Lugenpress stuff. That's a classic doctor picture. Although he should probably communicate his terrible excuses better with his vice president, because a day after he said it was him as a doctor, JD Vance said, "I think the president was posting a joke. You gotta coordinate better with America's Hitler, JD." His words. Anyway, it seems that now that people are refusing to slurp as much of his hogwash, Trump has decided to lash out as opposed to seek atonement. As I said, atonement and growth are just not something he's ever done, or shown himself to even be capable of doing. No one really talks enough about the fact that Trump always has an excuse and never admits fault, and how fundamentally toxic that trait is in a human being, let alone in a president. Like, we all know one of these guys. Now imagine a room of those guys all fighting each other. Because along with battling the Pope, Trump has been clapping back on many of the right-wingers speaking out against him. Most notably, there's this Truth Social post where Trump, the president, on his own personal social media site, called out Tucko Carlsbud, Megyn Kelly, Candace Owens, and Alex Jones as nut jobs with IQs so low that their own family knows it. Shocking stuff from a man who usually reserves insults about IQ for black people. King Clown saying, "Look at these clowns. They're just like that Marjorie Trader Brown." It's like watching the world's worst roommates piss in each other's shampoo bottles. It's hard to imagine a lot of these conservative figures ever being able to support Trump ever again, lest they be branded as cowards. In theory, unless they're grifters who don't really believe in anything and their audiences don't care and will just forget all about it and move on. It's not like a certain politician didn't have his wife repeatedly and publicly insulted by Trump before having to sweatily bow down to him the moment he became president. I forget the name of that guy, but it definitely happened. While they aren't the only people having this falling out, Tux, Megyn Kelly, Candace Owens, and Alex Jones happen to be pretty prominent data points on a larger gradient of liars who have built their career courting or building MAGA, and are now abandoning that strategy, allegedly. The four horsemen of the MAGA-apocalypse, we will call them for the sake of this episode, and maybe just this one time. We'll see. This gradient includes everything from establishment racists holding the party line to conspiracy-brained wildcards. You could argue that they all drew the line over Trump's useless war, but I'd counter-argue that none of these people were ones to draw lines in the past. And it should be noted, and will be noted repeatedly, that none of these people are turning against conservatism or the right wing of American politics itself, nor are they mad about the actual bad and authoritarian things Trump has done. For a lot of them, he didn't do enough of the bad things, and that's why they are mad. But the main talking point you're going to see throughout this episode is that Trump had promised no more wars and betrayed that promise, which is technically true if you believe that promise, which there was no reason to do. Trump, a man who lies so much that the act of specifically him lying has its own Wikipedia page, has a long history of being pro-war. I'm talking before his new term, where he renamed the Department of Defense into the Department of War. Because he loves war, you see. Find out all about it in our episode last week. One of the first things he proposed back in 2016 was taking all the oil in Iraq. The only way you thought that Trump wasn't going to support more wars is if you were not paying attention, were really gullible, or are a liar. Something to keep in mind for the rest of this video. So for starters, we have Tucko, an opportunist and career fraud who has proudly admitted to lying about being an expert on the O.J. Simpson trial in order to get his first TV job. He ended up on CNN before being humiliated by Jon Stewart, and then realized that right-wing media was more lucrative for him. He in fact correctly identified his predecessor, Bill O'Reilly, as an elitist, cosplaying as a populist in order to fleece rubes, and whose career would be over as soon as his shtick was revealed as being false. But then, of course, Tucker realized that the audience didn't care about the truth, and so he decided to just do that himself. And he now openly courts racists and Nazis because that's the niche he has found himself in, and is likely racist himself.
Pretty much everybody agreed that segregation was the worst thing this country ever did.
He wasn't gonna say worst, was he? He, in fact, purposefully made it seem like he was going to say best, didn't he?
Segregation was the worst thing.
Tucky is quite firmly in the camp of grifters who don't really believe in much of anything beyond keeping their fame alive. The kind of guy who would eat a worm if the right people clapped for it. No, we're not talking about Joe Rogan yet. Or Elon Musk, who would probably eat a bug too if you said he would be like a cool guy for eating a bug. But it's really important that everyone realizes this about Tucker and understands that you absolutely don't need to hand it to him, despite recent clips like this.
You and I and everyone else who supported him, you wrote speeches for him, I campaigned for him. I mean, we're implicated in this for sure.
Yes.
It's not enough to say, well, I changed my mind, or like, oh, this is bad, I'm out. It's like, in very small ways, but in real ways, you and me and millions of people like us are the reason this is happening right now.
Yes.
So I do think it's like a moment to wrestle with our own consciences. We'll be tormented by it for a long time. I will be. And I want to say I'm sorry for misleading people. It was not intentional. That's all I'll say.
Oh, he's sorry now. He's so sorry. He's got his sorry face on, which is just as confused. It's the same face. And he assures us that all the lies he did in the past to support Trump were not intentional. Whoopsie. Tux would go on to say about Trump's first term, quote, "We're all pretending we've got a lot to show for it, because admitting what a disaster it's been is too tough to digest. But come on, there isn't really an upside to Trump." Oh wait, correction, Tucker actually said that 5 years ago after Trump lost his re-election. He would then go on to publicly praise and support Trump for his second run at the office, despite absolutely hating him in private texts and calling him a demonic force. But don't worry, he didn't support him despite hating him intentionally. The idea that Tucker Carlsbud has had this sudden and dramatic change of heart and was somehow misled himself is, to put it lightly, obvious fucking bullshit from a stupid fucking asshole. It may be tempting to praise the words he's using as some kind of whisper of a specter of accountability, but make no mistake that Tucker T. Carlson has never liked Donald Trump and was 100% intentionally misleading the public into supporting him for years because it was convenient for him to do so. Now that it is slightly less convenient, he is putting on a show for the purposes of surviving the train wreck. He's Billy Zane at the end of Titanic using a little girl to get on a lifeboat. In this case, the lifeboat is J.D. Vance, who Tucker quite likes. Assuming their relationship survives this, it seems likely that Tucko will pivot to reforming Vance the moment Vance is allowed to distance himself from Trump. Maybe he'll be Vance's VP. How fun would that be? They can talk about demons together.
Culturally, I'm just not from a world where people are attacked by demons. And in fact, when it happened the next morning, when I saw the blood on my sheets, I was like, I actually called someone who works for me who's a very sincere, lifelong evangelical, and I'm like, have you ever heard of this? And she's like, oh yeah, it happens all the time. And I was like, what? And then I go to bed with my wife and 4 dogs who sleep in the bed. My wife's had 4 children. My dogs are hunting dogs. All 5 of them wake up like that. Like we have no home invaders in my house. I wake up at 2:30 in the morning. I check and I couldn't breathe at all. My throat was closed. It wasn't like I was apnea or was strong as I couldn't breathe. So I get up, I stand in the doorway of our bedroom, and I'm like, wow, I'm dying. I could feel myself starting to gray out. And then I started walking in the backyard, and then it slowly came back. Like my throat kind of opened up a little bit. I was like really weirded out. I walk back in, and my wife wakes up. She goes, what is going on? I said, I don't know. I can't breathe. I feel better now. And all of a sudden, I had this horrible pain underneath my arms. Like on the side of my chest, like bad. I thought I'd been like ripped with a knife or something. It just was very intense. So I go into the bathroom, I flip on the light, and I have claw marks on both sides, on right and left side on my ribs.
Dog clawed you. You had a panic attack in the middle of the night. Or a demon! Or one of your 4 large hunting dogs that you keep in your bed. Or a demon! Hey, show us the scars, Tucker. Although, you know what? To be fair, maybe they've healed.
Claw marks on my sides, on my...
So he left physical marks?
Oh, they're still there. Yeah. 1.5 years ago.
Oh. Show us the demon scars, Tucker! A lot of demon talk lately, isn't there? I actually have big thoughts about that. See, as we go through this episode, the obvious question is what the GOP will become after Trump. It seems like they always have this extremist subsection that takes over, like how it was the Tea Party before MAGA. I think Tucker is in this little club that I'm calling people who always hated Trump and are just waiting until they can stop pretending to like him. It's actually a very big little club. He joins the ranks of Ben Shapiro, most if not all of the Republicans in Congress, most likely, and the Vice President of the United States, most definitely. And I think one of the things that bothers them is how conspiracy-brained the GOP has become. It's been seemingly hijacked by Alex Jones and Laura Loomer types, these train wreck personalities drowning out that old school religious Republican image that I think they believe gives them more widespread appeal. I think a lot of people are internally sick of having to pander to the chemtrail crowd, despite Tucker obviously leaning into the puke. And what we're seeing are these sort of nudges from right-wing figureheads to get their party back on that religious track. The reason I think this is because some of them have flat out said it.
I mean, on the right, it manifests as a lot of conspiracy theorizing. One of the things I talk about, I think it manifests everywhere, is a sort of conspiracy theory. And traditional biblical religion is actually, in many ways, sort of the anti-conspiracy theories. The post-God ideology is that things happen randomly, bad things happen to good people. You can't control any of that. And then that is then projected into a conspiratorial idea that there must be forces beyond your reckoning who are out to get you. And you can see that on both right and left. The biblical worldview is actually quite harsh. It basically says that if you fail, it's probably your fault. There's a God-centered, ordered universe. If you do the right things, good things will likely happen. If you do the wrong things, bad things will likely happen, right? That's the entire book of Deuteronomy. And so the movement away from kind of personal responsibility and duty, that results in this very conspiratorial view of society in which, again, shadowy forces are out there and they're manipulating you.
Not gonna pick that clip apart as much as I really want to. Off the top of my head, he's complaining about the idea that people believe shadowy forces in the real world are manipulating you because he prefers the idea that demons are manipulating you. Maybe the demon hovering behind Dr. President Trump. But yeah, there are some interesting ideas Ben is saying there. I don't believe he's completely right, but his theory is that as the world got less religious, people still needed some kind of higher power to believe in, and fell into conspiracy theories. I'd argue that what actually happened is that as America got less religious, the right wing needed to appeal to a wider base and found a home in conspiracy theorists. Either way, I think that what he's saying there is the reason we have Tucker talking about how Satan clawed at him, or how J.D. Vance is now saying that he thinks aliens are actually demons.
When I came in, I was obsessed with the UFO files. And then you start getting really busy worrying about the economy and national security and things like that. But I've still got 3 more years as vice president. I will get to the bottom of the UFO files.
Okay. Have you peeked? Have you done a peek?
Have I what?
Have you done a peek? I mean, like,
So I actually haven't. I have
full
not.
Independence Day.
I have. Well, look, I think that celestial beings who fly around, who do weird things to people, I think that the desire to describe everything celestial, everything as otherworldly, to describe it as aliens. I mean, every great world religion, including Christianity, the one that I believe in, has understood that there are weird things out there. And there are things that are very difficult to explain. And I naturally go, when I hear about sort of extra natural phenomenon, that's where I go to, is the Christian understanding that, there's a lot of good out there, but there's also some evil out there. And I think that one of the devil's great tricks is to convince people he never existed.
Ha 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 ha. He has fun. You see what he's doing there? He starts by being like, oh yeah, I'm such an alien guy, even though I haven't actually looked into it myself, even though I said 8 months ago how obsessed I am with aliens, but haven't had time to look into it. And then he slowly moves over to, but maybe they're demons. Also, I've seen the usual suspects. It's like when a teacher's like, who's the best rapper? Shakespeare. He's how do you do fellow kidsing his base. He knows a big portion love UFOs, so he has to pretend to love UFOs too. Most recently, he claimed they're demons. But, as I mentioned, he also already did this song and dance last year.
Like, I'm obsessed with the whole UFO thing. What's actually going on? What were those videos all about? what's actually happening. I haven't gotten to the bottom of it yet, but we're only 6 months in.
was gonna
We've been
say,
very
you wanna-
busy.
should we make
That's
some news
actually
on
the August recess is in part me going to try to dive to the bottom of the whole UFO thing from last year.
Oh yeah, see, he is obsessed with them, but doesn't have the time right now. If only he had a second to himself, he would get to the bottom of this thing that he is obsessed with. And when you ask him again, literally 8 months later, he'll be like, yeah, I'm obsessed with that stuff. More than anybody. Maybe they're demons. It's just political pandering, like shaking the hand of an old person or pretending to like country music, or more specifically, Kid Rock. Vance is so desperately trying to wrangle the UFO conspiracy crowd toward the belief in a biblical God, and he is not the only one. Lauren Boebert just did a classic right-wing car rant about how UFOs are actually fallen angels. They clearly have a Slack channel about this, which was probably created by Peter Thiel, who I'm guessing is also the reason Vance has to talk about aliens so much. You gotta make your owner happy, buddy, and not to get all Ricky Gervais about it, but I would argue the reason people in the GOP are doing this is because they're far more experienced in controlling their religious base than their conspiracy base. Aliens, after all, don't necessarily believe in small government. Conspiracy people question authority. They can turn on you if, for example, certain files aren't satisfactorily released. Whereas the Republican Party has spent decades embedding themselves within Christianity, to the point that they don't even have to be Christians to get their vote. More on that later. On top of all of this, going the religious route gives you a built-in born-again excuse that you can use as many times as you want, as blatantly as you want. It's as easy as, like, sexual predator Russell Brand claiming to be Christian suddenly, as soon as the allegations started. How weird of that. In fact, it's so easy that Russell Brand, fake Christian, has a book out literally called How to Become a Christian in 7 Days. So, day 1, do some rape. Day 2, get away with it, maybe do some more rape. Day 3, get accused of the things you did. Day 4, say you're Christian. 5 through 7, coast. This is so easy, in fact, that you can claim you're a Christian, carry around a Bible as a prop in court, be asked for a single passage from the Bible that you read in court all day, and then do this. It's a long clip, but it's a really meaningful, dense passage, so bear with us.
You were seen looking at some passages. What were the relevant passages for you?
All right. Thank you for asking me.
Thank you. That didn't hurt, did it?
A little bit. It was this from Isaiah. And you're right, Bear did say, be chilled. Sometimes I lose the chill, man. It's pretty... It's this. They don't like that, do they, in the old gallery? But remember, you just said it's a hired spot. This is from Isaiah. Excuse me. Man, I'm not going to mark it before. It says here, the verse that I was looking at that day was not this. I can't actually find the verse that I had that day, but this is good enough.
Oh, weird, he never gets to it despite all those other little props, bookmarks. Now, that may have seemed like a little side quest about Russell Brand, which it was, but a fun little fact about sudden Christian for some reason, Russell Brand's book, How to Become a Christian in 7 Days, is that it was published by, and this is real, Tucker Carlson Books. Just something to know. Anyway, speaking of using religious conversion as a shield, Tucko illustrates, as eventually Vance will illustrate, that they can make sad eyes and talk about how they were misled by Trump and how, oh, now they see the light, no matter how obviously complicit they were in everything he did. They're sorry. Maybe it was the demons. So him is mainly what I'm saying. The broad bullet point of this section of the presentation is that Tucko Carlson is, and always was, and always will be, one of the most blatant grifters of our time. The juiciest, plumpest little rat on the hantavirus cruise ship. And it's absolutely grotesque that some people in the media are trying to give him some kind of fawning redemption arc. This truly despicable fascist propagandist who is willing to look anyone right in the eyes and lie about anything, no matter how harmful, so long as he thinks it'll benefit him. Like, come on.
And then on a recent show, you went further saying, here's a leader who's mocking the gods of his ancestors, mocking the God of gods and exalting himself above them. Could this be the Antichrist?
I actually did not say, could this be the Antichrist? Here's a leader who's mocking the gods of his ancestors, mocking the God of gods, and exalting himself above them. Could this be the Antichrist? Well, who knows? I don't know where that comes from, but I know that those words never left my lips because I'm not sure I fully understand what the Antichrist is. If there's just one, I actually tried to understand it.
Dude, what are you even saying? You're just lying very badly because you were caught. You haven't looked into the Antichrist, not even after you were attacked by a literal demon, Tucker? You didn't even Google that? Not even maybe I said that some people have Googled the Antichrist. No, he's a liar, an obvious one, who is now getting cornered in his lies and has to make up even weirder lies. He gets no points for seeking redemption because he's not doing that. Literally, the only thing he can do right now is stop talking and retire, which is still better than he deserves. I'm getting dizzy, so let's go to a break while I sit here and just stare straight ahead for a while. Enjoy these ads.
Places. We've all got them. Body places. You know, places on your body that do stuff. No, not that. Good stuff. You know what I'm saying. And if you like doing things with your places, then you'll want to know about Bellesa Boutique. They're flipping the script on sexual wellness vis-a-vis your place spots and giving away free spicy toys or gift cards for toys to every single one of you. All you have to do is sign up and you get a thing for a place. You can get acquainted with the Ultra Blow, the most advanced stroker yet, which is real nice if you've got one of those hanging out type body places. You know, you don't need me to draw the picture. The Ultra Blow, they say, is an elevated, lifelike experience that goes way beyond the usual. There's also the Rose. This little flower-shaped toy is cute and discreet and delivers 10 different suction modes. Honestly, fun little story. For a while now, I have been giving the Rose as a present to girlfriends who have recently gone through breakups. One of my girlfriends gave me the feedback that this was the most beautiful rose she'd ever received. This is a true story. All I'm saying is, if you've got places and you like those places being wowee, feel good, woo, then Bellesa is for you. And of course, we had to hook all of you up, so our friends at Bellesa and us are sending out free toys or gift cards for toys to everyone who signs up. Yes, you heard that right. Every single one of you wins something. Seriously. everybody gets something. Just click the link in the episode description or head to bbvibes.com/SMN. That's bbvibes, BBVIBES.com/SMN. Your ookie dokie hubba hubba wooga wooga places. Oh, well, thank you.
The question is, what time is it? No, that's not me asking for a secret password to enter the world of underground revolutionaries. Though, if you want to give me one, that's cool, I will take it. But a literal question. We're at a place right now where even the dadgum time could be a lie perpetrated by the media. And to cut through those confusing ocean waves, I recommend Ground News, a website and app we specifically wanted to sponsor us, which you can access via the QR code on the screen. They gather news from hundreds of media sources alongside context on each source, such as their political bias and who funds it, so that you can compare all of the coverage of every story yourself. I've been working with Ground News for a long time, and that is for a reason. I think they're one of the most powerful solutions for getting to the truth of a story, given all the spin you'll see online. For example, on Ground News, I can see how the different outlets covered one battle after another's big Oscar win. Most outlets, as you would expect, are being normal, with headlines like, "One battle after another dominates with 6 Academy Awards." But what about other outlets? Specifically, what about the Gateway Pundits' communist propaganda film One Battle After Another sweeps 6 Oscars, including Best Picture? Can't give it a rest for even a second? Can you guys? Oh my gosh. Also, sweeps suggest that it won everything for which it was nominated, which it did not. Just not what the word means. Get an editor. Get offline, shut down your operation. Anyway, that was fun. So head over to crown.news/SMN for 40% off unlimited access. You'll get a factuality analysis of each source and their blind spot feature to see which stories are being ignored by one side of the aisle. That's ground.news/SMN for 40% off. The link is in the description. The password, I actually don't remember. I'm sure it's not important. News! Did I mention that this was a news show? Legally, it isn't. Just like how Tucker's lawyers argued in court that his old show at Fox should be watched with skepticism because he frequently lies. I mean, exaggerates. Much like how Alex Jones argued in court that he's doing a character and nobody should take anything he says as being true. So did Truck, who, as I said before the break, believes in nothing. Troiko, who in fact hated Trump this entire time, even while pretending to support him. A little rat painting a ship with his shit. And now he's jumping that plague ship, also known as a cruise ship. Which cruise ship? All of them. They're all gross. Anyway, he's doing this much like a lot of Republicans, including Megyn Kelly, our second horse man. Much like how Santa can't be black, I assume she thinks that horsemen can't be women. Unless that's woke, because it's saying only toxic men can do an apocalypse. Whatever, who cares? There's a war on Christian toothpaste and so on. You get it. She was a Fox News ghoul turned NBC ghoul who was then fired for saying that blackface is fine sometimes. But not when it's Santa, I guess? That's weird. Megyn, leave a comment. Confirm whether or not you think it's okay for Santa to do blackface and or just be black. Anyway, now she's her own independent, free-thinking ghoul, much like Tux. They each have shows named after themselves on channels named after themselves. A common element of a lot of these people, actually. But Megs and Tux are both especially similar in that at various points they tried to be like serious news people on serious-ish networks. Also, I'm guessing they both have got a lot of cosmetic dental work done, which is fine. Whatever. But Kelly is unique in that she stood up to sexual harassment by her former boss at Fox News, Roger Ailes. And good on her for that. Charlize Theron played her in the movie, and I think she sees herself as someone who speaks truth to power, especially since she's gotten praise for exposing incidents of abuse or harassment. Really, the only thing that sets her apart from Tucker is that she's a lady who who has actually experienced what it's like to be a lady in a toxic, male-dominated work environment, which for the MAGA crowd has a bit of value, so you can prop her up and have her say stuff like this.
He will be a protector of women, and it's why I'm voting for him.
Oh, hey. Oof. If you look closely, you can actually see her soul shudder and die a little bit. Maybe it was a demon. That's a clip from 2024, and it kind of makes me want to play this other clip from 2015. So I will.
You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account...
Only Rosie O'Donnell.
No, it wasn't.
Funny stuff. Fun fact, during that debate, Trump would go on to say that the country's too PC and everyone would cheer, just to give you a reminder as to why we decided to go with a stupid fascist for president. Anyway, Trump would later remark that Kelly was so triggered by him, saying she had, quote, blood coming out of her eyes, or, and this is key, blood coming out of her wherever. This would spiral into a simmering feud for the entirety of Trump's first term. So what changed after that? Why did Megyn Kelly suddenly decide that Trump, a rapist and besties with a child rapist, was a protector of women? Well, all that stuff I said before about Kelly being at Fox, moving to NBC, and then starting her own network named after herself, that all happened after the 2015 debate. She got into this public feud, moved to NBC, and tried to make herself a mainstream staple while riding the Me Too wave.
The women of Fox News rose up against the CEO there, who was a king, and had our own Me Too movement and didn't get as much attention, I believe, because a lot of people don't like Fox. The Me Too movement started in situations where the power dynamic was like this, and women had kept quiet for far too long because of that dynamic. I think we've made amazing strides this year, and it has been an empowering year for women.
Listen to her talking about social justice and change like a real seasoned woke. But soon after, she crashed and burned thanks to low ratings and that whole, the blackface thing. And it just so happened that this was right around the end of Trump's first term. So Kelly, having now gone solo, had limited options and came crawling back to the big creep, specifically downplaying the events of January 6th and finding success once more. Cut to 2024, and Megyn Kelly had one of the most popular shows after making public amends with Trump a year earlier. It's kind of the same story as most of these freaks. Kelly had alienated herself from the mainstream and the left, had no network to back her, and kinda had to court MAGA again, just like Tux and Ben and the rest of them. All it really cost her was some basic moral principles. Supporting a man who is indistinguishable from that boss who once harassed her, because money. Who doesn't love money? It smells like every hand. It's not one-to-one, but it kind of reminds me of Dave Chappelle, in that he has this really bad opinion on trans people, alienated a lot of his audience, and suddenly found himself on the side of the right wing, having his own words weaponized by people who probably don't share his same principles otherwise, which is actually part of the reason he left Chappelle's show in the first place. Not saying Chappelle is MAGA, this video isn't about him, just reminded me of it. This pattern we see where someone purposefully or accidentally sides with fascists who hate them because they happen to hate the same person or people. Megyn Kelly really likes saying racist stuff and hating trans people, wanted to go it alone as a right-wing pundit, and so had to support a disgusting man who was everything she was trying to get away from in the first place. There's an entire group of people who became untethered from mainstream likability or support that we could talk about here. People who got in trouble and then glommed onto MAGA simply because they will accept anyone willing to join them, so long as it makes them feel like they have some kind of shared culture. I imagine a lot of those people don't actually like Trump, but see him as a means to an end, and are going to have a lot of trouble in the future, hopefully. And so it makes sense that Kelly made that MAGA turn the moment she was similarly untethered, and clearly now sees the writing on the wall. But hey, maybe she can use this as a moment to reset a bit and get back to the one noble thing about her, which was standing up for victims of abuse and harassment. Let's hear what she has to say about Trump now.
Maybe I'm naive. I'm old, but I'm naive.
I just thought that Trump really meant it when he promised to buck the system. He promised he couldn't be bought. He was bought. I mean, like the Miriam Adelson $250 million bought him on Iran and Israel. And he's doing exactly what she wanted him to do. He was manipulated by Netanyahu. She's thrilled. This is not what his base wanted. And it's unfortunate. I didn't think Trump could be bought. I really believed that he couldn't.
Is she talking to Russell Brand? Are you kidding me, Meg? Come on. All right, so there you have it. All the other bad stuff about Trump, stuff that Kelly once called him out on, doesn't matter. I mean, she was always right-wing, but you'd think she'd, try to rebrand a little bit. But alas, her racism was far more powerful than her self-respect. And here she is now, doing PR work for Nick, absolutely a Nazi Fuentes.
And I know your heart was in the right place, and it was a worthwhile exercise because he's a very interesting guy, let's face it. Yeah. He's obviously got some very extreme views, but he's very interesting and he's very smart. And on a lot of things, there is value to be derived from that guy's messaging. I'm sorry, but he actually has a lot of things he talks about that you're like, oh, this is not a bad point about our country. Excuse his thoughts on race and Jews and the Holocaust and all that, obviously.
Yeah, interesting, smart guy. When you take out all the stuff he says about the Jews and black people, obviously. Remove the whole anyone not white is bad part, and Nick Fuentes is a real cool cat. Hey, Megyn, do you think it's possible that the other stuff that you find interesting is maybe connected to the Nazi stuff he says? Because he's a Nazi. Explicitly, a Nazi trying to sneak even more Nazism into the public discourse. By pretending that he's interesting, which he isn't, you are helping him spread his Nazi propaganda. You're a Nazi propagandist, Megyn. Any other Nazi propaganda you want to do?
And they always describe him as far right, which I'm like, yeah, I'm not sure that's right, but I understand why they're doing it.
Are you stupid or a liar, Megyn? It's at least one. It's probably both, but it's at least one. He's a Nazi. Yes, he's far right. She goes on to say, well, he's more black-pilled. He's not red or blue. He's black-pilled because the Nazis aren't doing enough Nazi stuff for him. He's a Nazi. You're helping him do Nazi propaganda. I know I already said it. You are doing Nazi propaganda, Megyn. Jesus fucking Christ. Fuck. Anyway, you'll notice that in that Russell Brand clip, she speculates that Trump was compromised in some way. This is an extremely important talking point for all of these grifters and folks we haven't mentioned yet. The idea that Trump is changed or uncharacteristically betrayed them. Because obviously, if that wasn't true, it would mean that he was always like this, and they either were too stupid to tell or evil liars. Trump would never do literally anything for more money. That's the one thing we know about Trump. So it is vital for all of them to push this narrative, even if that means wading a bit into conspiracy theories. Because for the true believers, it's kind of the only way to cope, right? It's certainly the only way to make sure you don't learn anything from this experience, so you can go interview Russell Brand about how him having sex with a 16-year-old girl technically wasn't illegal. This brings us to Candace Owens, who has woven an elaborate story as to why Trump's turn is directly related to Charlie Kirk's death, because he was bribed or blackmailed or something. Specifically, like Megyn Kelly in that clip, she talks about how Miriam Adelson, a pro-Israel billionaire, donated $100 million to Trump's campaign in exchange for certain favors, and that Trump, in secret, planned to screw Adelson over right before his attempted assassination.
After she said this to Trump, Trump went, he was wherever Charlie was, Trump was adjusting his tie and looking in the mirror, and he said, I'm going to take her money and then I'll F her over. Okay. I am hearing this from Charlie, who was there first person, and Andrew, who confirmed this. Andrew was also there. That nobody else was there but Andrew and Charlie when Trump said this. A few weeks later, there was the Butler attempted assassination. And I find it very strange that Donald Trump is not interested or has appeared to be completely disinterested in determining who fired that shot.
There are a lot of moving parts here that I won't get into, and while Trump is a liar and a criminal, and a lot of stuff he does or is involved with seems very suspicious, Owens has clearly created this elaborate web of conspiracy that very conveniently helps her not only justify the idea that Trump has changed, but seems to imply some kind of higher meaning to the death of Charlie Kirk, her friend. It's a little sad, actually, and it makes me suspect that Owens actually does believe at least some of the lies she spreads, if only because she's a little bit, well...
US conservative influencer and podcaster Candace Owens has accused French President Emmanuel Macron and his wife Brigitte of paying for her assassination in what she called an urgent X statement, which has garnered more than 40 million views. Owens has been leading the international fake news campaign, which alleges that Brigitte Macron is in fact a man.
Let's call it dedicated to the bit. She might need help, is my point. I don't know, maybe this is her grift. There's this whole other internal fight a lot of these freaks are having that we won't get into, but I suspect it's related to what I said before about some of these people trying to push back on all the conspiracy theories. We did a whole thing about how Ben was more than happy to entertain conspiracies and racism up until it started getting directed at Israel. It's all to say that the entire right wing is sort of combusting like the Death Star, and all the little escape pods are vying for a landing spot. But Owens appears to be particularly hostile to her fellow grifters. Most notably, her weird campaign against Erica Kirk, which Megyn Kelly actually tried to mediate. Not to take Kirk's side ever, but it just seems like Candace Owens has become so conspiracy-brained that she's alienating pretty much everyone who might support her. Counterpoint, it's working as a grift. So, I don't know, it's subjective, but I think Owens probably believes more of what she says in comparison to Megyn Kelly or the Tucks. Owens, notably, started as a left-wing blogger who, during Gamergate, created a cyberbullying accountability website that immediately descended into a doxing machine. At the time, pretty much everyone agreed that she had messed up. Sadly, this spiraled into death threats and racism aimed at Owens, who somehow got it in her head that this was all coming from the left. That grievance continued to spiral as she was courted by right-wing freaks, pulled into their world, and saw immediate success using her position as a black woman to propagandize for the right. And all of this was happening right as Trump rose to prominence. I don't think Candace really knows what happened here, but it seems like she had a really bad experience that turned into a blind grievance against an entire political side, and she hasn't really looked back or explored it since, which explains her logic for why she supported Trump in the first place.
When I had my aha moment, which really happened with me just looking at Trump coming down the escalator, being like, this man is crazy. I don't want this guy to be president. But then hearing him when he said, Black America, what do you have to lose? And he listed the statistics. And I knew that I came from a family that was impoverished. And I have so many cousins that are on welfare. And I thought to myself, yeah, no, what do we have to lose?
So she saw Trump come down the escalator and call Mexicans rapists and was like, wow, this guy's nuts. And then Trump was like, come on. And she was like, yeah, okay, sure. It's just clear she's one of those right-wingers who let a single grievance escalate into an entire personality and just got swallowed whole. Also, and this is crucial to understand, Owens is also deeply and proudly ignorant. She literally doesn't believe in dinosaurs. So ultimately, I would lump Owens in with Marjorie Taylor Brown and Alex Jones, in that there's this type of weirdo that peddles conspiracies from the position of being a sort of outsider, sees the left as this big insidious establishment, and honestly thought that Donald Trump was gonna save us all from the deep state. And now that he's been president twice, they are slowly having to contend with the fact that he is the establishment. Like, Marjorie Taylor Greene actually seemed genuinely surprised that Trump, a guy who has admitted to being a sex pest and criminal, was a sex pest and criminal and probably a pedophile. She quit her job over it, allegedly, far earlier than when other people turned on him. And maybe that's just because she wants to pivot to podcasts, the real money. Maybe we'll see her on YouTube with her own channel called The Green Zone. Meaner with greener, something like that. We'll workshop it. Or, geez, maybe she'll be running in the next presidential election. Green continues to say that she believes in the America First movement itself, and so you can easily see her carving out a distinct path after this. So, I don't know. Also, I don't care. Nor should you. But if you still care, when you dig down into it, the real reason just seems to be that she wanted to run for Senate in Georgia and Trump told her no. Everything spirals from there, and also seems related to his personal treatment of her. It's not ideological, and it's not really even about some of the bad stuff Trump has done, but rather about some of the bad stuff Trump has done and said to her. Because that's all a lot of these people really care about. Well, how is he treating me? Like how Bill Maher thinks it's interesting or relevant that Trump was nice to him personally during a private dinner. Like Megyn Kelly falling out with Trump after the blood fell out of her wherever. It's also likely that at least some of the reason she resigned, aside from finally meeting the 5-year requirement to secure her pension, is that, as has been displayed by the Bonginos who left before her, it's just more fun yelling from the bleachers than playing the game. And of course, there's no bigger yeller than Alex Jones. I don't really want to talk about him much because he's a bad and boring and dumb person. If Hitler farted in a jar, I'd find that fart jar more compelling than Alex Jones. At least the Hitler fart jar is historic. He apparently doesn't know what sketch comedy is. Anyway, Jones was the 4th horseman Trump mentioned in that post. So we're talking about him a little bit. Alex was pretty ride or die for Trump at one point, but Jones has always been beholden to the conspiracy grift long before Trump came along. And so Alex Jones's support for Trump has been in passing, on and off again, a turd drifting in a storm drain, occasionally bumping up, two shits passing in the night, if you will. It was very useful for both of them when Trump was this outsider running for office, but ultimately, both Trump and Jones got burned on the whole arrangement. To sum up the problem that followed, I'll simply quote Ben Collins, current owner of The Onion, and now maybe kinda InfoWars, who said of Jones, quote, "He spent 15 years saying there are going to be guys on the streets wearing masks, shoving you in the back of a van and putting you on a black site. Then all that shit happened and he was like, amazing, cool, let's go." After all, you can't really be this underdog conspiracy guy and support the president. It's like a Romeo and Juliet situation. Their love is forbidden. And then something happens that I legally can't suggest they do. This is all to say it was inevitable that once Trump rode that conspiracy wave to the White House and then didn't expose the deep state and is maybe even doing a little deep state of his own, Alex Jones would be forced to use that same toxic wave to attack him. Now coming out and saying that Trump is being puppeted by, you guessed it, demonic forces. Much like how Candace Owens is saying he's been compromised by Israel, this conveniently absolves them of having supported Trump in the first place. That was always correct and good, but suddenly he's bad. Because whether or not these people actually believe the stuff they are saying, it's also very clear that they are protecting their brands.
So I want to be clear. I don't regret voting for Donald Trump above Kamala. I think he was the better candidate, certainly a better candidate above Joe Biden. But what I will say is that he's been a chronic disappointment. And I feel embarrassed that I told people to go vote for him because this wasn't going to happen and it is happening.
Pretty important to note her lead up there. It's why we can't credit any of the people we're talking about. As I said before, they still like a lot of the bad stuff Trump did and does and is doing. Alex Jones still doesn't care that ICE is kidnapping people. None of these people are saying they should have voted for Kamala or are questioning their core beliefs as a whole. Nor do they want us to question it. They so badly need us to think that current Trump is an aberration and not what he actually is. The natural and desired result of everything the right wing believed in. He is what they wanted. But now that so many people have realized that stuff sucks and his popularity is tanking, they have to pivot. Again, going back to our hantavirus metaphor, they're actually worse than the plague rats. Because the plague rats don't want to spread the plague unless they're evil talking rats. This is the virus they wanted to happen and are now acting like they didn't. Ultimately, I have no idea if any of these people actually believed Trump was going to do good things or just didn't care either way. At the end of the day, they are all still liars who have to protect their lying empire. It's hard to imagine anyone actually thinking that Donald Trump would save the country, especially going into his second term. It's hard to imagine these people as anything other than liars and grifters in it for themselves. And the reason why is simple. The big elephant in the room for all of these people claiming to have been betrayed by Trump is that he's always been like this. Obviously, he hasn't changed. As we've pointed out, he's always been a racist and a liar and a grifter. And a lot of people have known that and said it for a really long time. And so all of these people have to contend with that obvious fact. So after the break, we're going to explore that a little more, really dig into that cognitive dissonance. But that's after these ads. From Star Wars Day to Mr. Beast's birthday, May is full of celebrations. Spring is in full sprung, and I wouldn't mind unwinding with a little aperitif before Din Din. But I want to be at my freshest and my most limber every day. So that's why I use ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic Drink, the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink alcohol, gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's a buildup of this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for rough days after drinking. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night, drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. From the crack of the bat of the stadium to the start of wedding season and the roar of the engines in Indy, May is packed with back-to-back reasons to be out. Monsterpalooza in Pasadena, National Limerick Day, the anniversary of the passing of Norm Van Brocklin. Don't let a rough morning after keep you on the sidelines. Drink pre-alcohol to stay ahead of it and make the most of every Saturday this month, of which there are actually 2 more, so that's nice. 2 more Saturdays. Go to zbiotics.com/more news to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use code MORE NEWS at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/more news and use the code MORE NEWS at checkout for 15% off. Okay?
What's landing on Pluto TV? Well, if you were listening closely, you'll recognize I said the word landing with a lot of emphasis. And that's because Pluto TV has tons of mind-bending space and alien-related series that you can stream for free. Things like The 100, Battlestar Galactica, and The X-Files. Why, by the time you're done, you'll think you're on the planet and or moon and or really big asteroid Pluto. Whatever it is now, you will think that you're there. Plus, Pluto TV has tons of other TV series about all kinds of non-space stuffs. Shows like Fringe, Arrow, Blood Flood, Miracle on Melrose and Gower, Undercover Middle Manager, Scrunchy the Product, the show, Mr. Peanut Gets Stuck Under the Couch, The Bathtub That Was Too Big, That Song by Tonic, Friendly Faces, Strangest Places, No Ibuprofen, Underwater Crab Guy, Let's All Be Buddhists, James K. Polk, This Prez Goes to 11, and Charmed. Free your mind and keep your money with Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never. Also, stream now.
Typical ads. Hey, hi, welcome back. Before that break, we were talking about Candace Owens and Alex Jones and the people who were sort of in that twilight between grifter and true believer when it comes to Trump. For the record, I'm not a mind reader, no matter how much Robitussin I drink, so I'm completely guessing for fun. Brass tacks, Trump is unpopular. And all of these people rose to power, at least in part, through their support of Trump. Yes, they are rats leaving the ship, but they're also rats who helped build the ship, which they also infected with hantavirus, I guess. The metaphor is falling apart. And most of them, I believe, would stick with Trump if they thought it would be beneficial to do so. But they all realized how disastrous that was, and one by one, they all saw an out, mainly the war and/or Epstein, and they took it. And now they have to explain why things are different with Trump now, despite Trump always being this way. Because, yeah, it almost goes without saying, Trump didn't change. Trump was always like this. Of course he was. We know it, they all know it, and are desperately dancing around it. Some of them have even faced this head on. Marjorie Taylor Greene most notably apologized for her role in the toxic politics of MAGA, as if she just realized it was bad.
I would like to say humbly, I'm sorry for taking part in the toxic politics. It's very bad for our country. And it's been something I've thought about a lot, especially since Charlie Kirk was assassinated.
She started her career by following around Parkland students and harassing them on camera. Anyway, notice that she uses Charlie Kirk's assassination as a personal turning point. And I just have to note that this was the exact same line used about Trump after his own assassination attempt. That it somehow changed or humbled him, made him born again, which it clearly didn't. And yes, they tried to do it again after this last assassination attempt too. And I assure you, if the first two didn't change him, the third one won't either. Sorry. He's not going to turn to Jesus anytime soon or ever. It's one of the more fascinating groups of Trump supporters. The people who seem to either hope he'll find religion or actually think he was religious to begin with. And were, it appears, genuinely surprised when he posted that AI slop of him as Jesus, as if they were just learning he wasn't actually religious, despite him always being not. He's not religious. Like, of course he's not. He never was. Why would you ever think he was? Look at him. Look at this. Watch this with your eyes and listen with your ears.
I'm wondering what one or two of your most favored Bible verses are and why.
I wouldn't want to get into it because to me that's very personal. You know, when I talk about the Bible, it's very personal, so I don't want to get into verses. I don't want to get into...
There's no verse that means a lot to you that you think about or cite?
The Bible means a lot to me, but I don't want to get into specifics.
Even to cite a verse that
you
like?
No, I don't want to do that.
You're an Old Testament guy or a New Testament guy?
Probably equal. I think it's just an incredible... The whole Bible is an incredible... I joke... very much so. They always hold up The Art of the Deal. I say my second favorite book of all time.
That's like a movie. That's like a scene in a comedy about a grifter who has obviously never read the Bible running for president. How could anyone see that clip and think, oh, he must really love the Bible since he can't say anything specific about it? A real Russell Brand style Christian. But at some point, his supporters just kind of decided he was religious. The same way you'd throw a dog a birthday party. It just happened around him. And it always seemed pretty fucking wild, right? Unreal even. We'd get pictures of Trump in the Oval Office about to sign some bill saying that it's fine to gamble on cockfights or whatever. And a group of people would all be around him praying like the cover of a Dead Kennedys album. And I always kind of assumed that these were religious conservatives who knew damn well that Trump wasn't down with Jay, but was simply a means to an end. And then he posts this picture of himself as Jesus, and they actually act like that's shocking. Like, why even bother? Why would Riley Gaines post about how shocked she is that Trump mocked God? To which the president responded by saying he's not a fan of her and doesn't listen to her, and then post a second thing the same day about how she actually loves Trump and is happy to eat his shit after all. I don't know. I guess she's probably also a grifter who likes Trump because he hates the same people as her. But if so, why even act temporarily offended? I guess what's bugging me in all of this is that it can't just be that these people are all grifters. Some of them are bound to also be stupid and gullible. One or the other, this small army of people only now denouncing Trump, who were apparently very late to the party, the last horses finishing the race, years after everyone else, where I genuinely want to ask them, did you not realize this before? An amazing type of human who, it seems, was actually born yesterday, otherwise known as comedian podcasters.
Dude, X is crazy now. I remember I remember when it was Twitter, it was like, there's too much censorship. And I'm like, yeah, dude, like, let me see the real shit. Now I'm kind of like, yeah, let's censor this heavily again. I can't even go on X anymore. I get all like race baiting, kind of like race war propaganda where it's like, can you believe it's just nonstop.
Dude, Elon should do better than that. He should want better than that for society, I feel like.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's a lot of smut. It's just trash. It feels like trash, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, guys. Yes. Oh, and also, no shit. Yeah. What are you talking about? He bought the site to make it like that. It's operating as intended. Where have you been? Theodore Capitani von Kernatowski III is indeed a fascinating man. I genuinely wouldn't be surprised to learn he was made fully formed in a lab. The world would actually make more sense if that were true. And much like most of the people I've mentioned, Theo is now shocked by recent events and convinced that Trump must be compromised in some way.
And it's not. And what American is this helping? Besides the war, the industrial war complex, what American, what hard work, what guy who's trying to take care of his family, or a single mother who's a nurse who's going to work and has to get home and get to her kid's ball game and has to be both parents. What farmer is this helping? What regular person is this helping? I just don't know. I don't understand. So yeah, that's what our president's up to, and it's fucking baffling, and it's sick, and it feels like he's just been compromised by Israel, by this dark government over there.
Yeah, Trump, the innocent lamb that he is compromised. They got to him. How could it have happened? Trump, a man who would never take a bribe or do crimes or scams. Anyway, Theo, I'm sticking him in this new category, away from the political pundits and grifters, and over with your Joe Rogans and Andrew Schultzes. I'll call this category, dipshits. Good ring to it. Guys who don't really have a journalistic responsibility and are allowed to say whatever and support whomever because at the end of the day, they're, on paper, entertainers. But of course have used their position to boost Trump and a lot of the terrible stuff Trump represents. Yet they are now seemingly blindsided because the garbage guy they liked is now doing garbage things. Because they're dipshits who were born yesterday.
What just seems so insane based on what he ran on. I mean, this is why a lot of people feel betrayed, right? He ran on no more wars and these stupid, senseless wars, and then we have one that we can't even really clearly define why we did it.
Joe, he wanted to take the oil from Iraq back in 2016 and Libya back in 2011. As I said at the start of this episode, Trump, a notorious liar, has always wanted to do a war. It's not a betrayal. Sorry, you just weren't paying attention, I guess. Joe has done this a few times, clutched his pearls about Trump as if this wasn't exactly who Trump always was.
I don't think if the Trump administration, if they're running and they said, we're going to go to Home Depot and we're going to arrest all the people at Home Depot, we're going to go to construction sites and we're going to just like tackle people at constructions. I don't think anybody would have signed up for that.
Yeah, Joe, that is what they explicitly said they would do. Mass deportations. There were signs everywhere, Joe, as in literally signs. Sorry, buddy, that is indeed what you signed up for. Whoops. For the record, Joe Rogan isn't fleeing the ship. He's more like a rat sitting on the edge of the ship contemplating the water. He's sort of both sides, the whole mass deportation thing, and of course, quite recently was in the Oval Office and sucking up to Trump because he wants to do shrooms. Which I super get. But at what point do people like Theo Von and Joe Rogan realize that perhaps, in the future, they shouldn't involve themselves in politics? Like, as I said, they're free to weigh in. This is America, for now, but maybe they have a responsibility to reflect on this betrayal and how, for a huge number of people they have ignored for many years, none of what Trump has done was surprising at all. Perhaps they should stop and think, hey, it seems like there were people telling us not to support Donald Trump for the exact reasons he betrayed us. Maybe I'm not cut out to talk with such authority on these issues, but more likely they'll just pivot. Like everyone I've mentioned will pivot, and everyone who will turn on Trump will pivot. And like we said, they're just comedians. Of course, if you're a comedian talking to the richest man on the planet or the most powerful man on the planet, maybe it's actually not super funny to just laugh along with them and agree with everything they say and try to make them look cool and harmless and interesting and help them ingratiate themselves with the population. But whatever. Comedy is subjective. As we said, they're not journalists. They're not even pretending to be journalists or being propped up as journalists or influencers or bragging about how they helped get their guy a bump in the polls. Oh wait, is it clip time?
This group influenced the presidential election of 2024.
Yo, listen. Don't even say influence. We decided.
We were the turning point.
Just know. And we'll be left out of everything, and that's fine. We don't give a fuck about the credit. We know what we do. But he was not up until this pod.
It's true.
After the pod, he surges, 3 or 4%?
Yeah, it was a wrap, dude.
Mm-hmm. Never went back down after that.
Aw, crap, that's alleged comedian Andrew Schulz bragging about how influential their little journalistic interview with the next president was. Seemingly, they're happy about how their platform and their public support for Donald Trump helped Donald Trump. So at the very least, during a time when it seemed like maybe culturally the country was wild for Donald Trump, he was comfortable and happy to go along with it. That's interesting. And since it's clip time apparently, here he is months later after it seemed like the country had started to sour on Donald Trump, in large part due to his actions and words.
I believe when Trump, everything he campaigned on, I believe he wanted to do. And now he's doing the exact opposite thing of every single fucking thing.
I don't know what he's done. Yeah, exactly to your point. If you tell me, it's easier for me to believe you wanted to do all these things if any of them were happening in the way that you said they would.
To that point, like there'll be people that they'll DM me and be like, you see what your boy's doing? You voted for this. I'm like, I voted for none of this. He's doing the exact opposite of everything I voted for. Yeah. I want him to stop the wars. He's funding them. I want him to shrink spending, reduce the budget. He's increasing it. It's like everything that he said he's going to do, except sending immigrants back. And now he's even flip-flopped on that.
Some regrets, it seems. Interesting how he started to express doubts about Donald Trump, to be clear, when it was too late, after some of the things Donald Trump said he wanted to do were done by him. And actually, see, you can't put it on them. Sure, Schulz bragged about helping, and was more than pleased to gleefully discuss how it seems like maybe they helped him. But come on! Not anymore. They're not journalists. Yes, 6 months after Trump became president the second time, Andrew Schulz was profiled by the New York Times as potentially America's foremost political journalist. But counterpoint, have you considered that he was apparently surprised and appalled that ICE agents shot protesters, and then Trump and his administration immediately labeled them far-left terrorists and assassins?
Let's talk about what happened in Minneapolis. ICE murdered an American citizen in cold blood, and then the Trump administration called him a domestic terrorist.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Like plain and simple.
Yeah.
I see the administration trying to spin it, and it's fucking disgusting. This was a breaking point for me in the way that the administration responded to it. Like, I didn't think what's happening right now with ICE could happen in America. I genuinely did not think that was possible. I thought our institution, I thought the Constitution would hold up. When I see it and then immediately defend it, I start to go, we gotta be very loud about this. Like, it all of a sudden becomes not like liberal catastrophic thinking. It starts to become very reasonable, nuanced criticism of the administration. They have just made the most far left critiques of the Trump administration. Their reaction to this has just justified all of them.
Now, to be clear, it is good that he reacted appropriately to seeing ICE agents shoot citizens in the street and the government call them lefty assassins who deserved it. But it's bad that he's surprised that it happened. It speaks to his complete lack of curiosity about, or knowledge of, or interest in any of this at all. Or it speaks to how he's comfortable with lying and is just grifting off of what he perceives to be popular at the time. It's not enough to say, the left was right about this and we'll eat crow on that, without actually reflecting on why they were right, on why and how you were conned by this historical con man, on why you felt like you had to have him on and suck his dick on camera, ostensibly acting like the liberal mainstream media that you say you have a problem with. If you're not actually reflecting on why the left was seemingly 100% right about Donald Trump and the MAGA movement, and how maybe every single thing Donald Trump says is a con and everything he touches falls apart, you come off as a liar or stupid, man. But hey, I am being unfair. Maybe he had a good reason to support and vote for this guy.
The sides switched so much. You know, when I was younger, like, Democrats were cool. They were getting their dick sucked in the office. They were like, right? They were like, they were like supportive of like hip hop music. They said, do whatever you want. Like, we don't want to be in your bedroom. They were cool with gay people. Like, it was cool to be a Democrat. Now, conservatives got 3 baby mamas. The president got 3 baby mamas. He's getting pussy left and right, right? He's cool. He's the one saying, say whatever the fuck you want. So now conservatives have become Democrats. So I don't think I've changed. I just like the dudes that get pussy and say whatever they want. So it's you want me to be a Democrat again? Get some pussy. Tell me to say whatever I want. I'm there.
Oh, okay. So America's foremost political journalist supported Donald Trump because he gets pussy. How he gets that pussy, we'll never know, unless we're just casually hanging out because he freely admits to just taking it. So number 1 on Andrew Schulz's list of reasons to vote for somebody is apparently rapist. I'd be curious to know if dick counts for Andrew. Like, if Kamala Harris was a lesbian and got a bunch of pussy, would that have convinced this foremost political journalist to reconsider his support for infamous con man and rapist and fraud Donald Trump? I don't know. He might not know, because he probably doesn't think much about stuff. But number 2 on the list for this 2-issue voter is, let him say what he wants to say. As we've now seen, Trump is very anti-free speech and sues everyone and tries to shut down speech everywhere if it's critical of him. But again, to Andrew's credit, we would never know this unless we looked at every piece of available data about Donald Trump and his years of doing it and saying that he'd like to do it. I don't mean to focus so much on this one dipshit. And there does need to be an off-ramp for people who voted for Trump and regret voting for Trump, or who were duped by Trump and are realizing that maybe they were duped by Trump, or even people who liked what he was saying and then saw it in practice and recognized that it's actually extremely fucking evil and bad. But for these guys, that off-ramp is and should be a lot harder to navigate. If you regret not seeing this coming, even though everybody else did, figure out why they were right and you were wrong. Schulz doesn't even regret supporting Trump, so this is all pointless. He doesn't regret the suck-off interview. He's just saying the left was apparently right that mass deportations would be violent and chaotic, and Trump's government is fine shooting protesters, but no regrets? That's weird. Do you at least regret saying that you vote for people who get pussy? About a rapist? You stupid asshole? Without reflecting on why you helped so much, and why it is suddenly bad, and why maybe you shouldn't trust the infamous con man and rapist, and how maybe you made a mistake, saying, the left got me on that one, is pretty useless and performative. A rat holding a hammer while pointing at a single rusty nail as the ship falls apart underneath them can't just say, a weird bad nail, but the plans were good, the ship's still good. I mean, you can say that, but it's just not very convincing. Of course, devil's advocate, maybe the ship gets pussy. Never thought about it like that. When you're sailing, they let you do it. What this actually isn't that complicated. It happens to an extent with every lame duck president. Trump has been, for way too long, the core identity of the Republican Party. And now they're all realizing that this won't be possible for much longer. And most uniquely to now, I think they're realizing that a big part of the 2028 election will be every candidate fighting over who was the most against Trump. A deeply unpopular failure of a president who a lot of people have publicly supported. I think Trump, when the dust settles, will be regarded a lot like the Iraq War, where eventually every politician will have always been against it, yada, yada, yada. And many grifters have the advantage of getting ahead of that now. I'm sure JD and Mike Johnston super want to, but can't yet, lest they be hanged. Everyone will have to do it at some point. But this Iran war was as good of a time as ever. Again, maybe some of them are actually feeling betrayed. Who cares? They are rats, fleeing the ship. Some of them might hang on to the outside for a while longer, see if they can sneak back on when the time is right. Some might form a whole new rat party where they talk about demons a bunch. Some will pretend to atone and self-reflect, from Tucker and Green admitting their part in it, but also not really, and also not for honest reasons, to Candace Owens acting like she's part of some elaborate conspiracy. All of them are trying to carve out their next place in the political pundit sphere, not fully knowing what it will be, but betting hard that it won't involve Trump. Which is good news if you hate Trump. Don't want to assume for you though. But boy, as we continue to watch the rats leave the ship, we absolutely can't forget this moment. Everyone we talked about today and every prominent right-winger who will try to pivot away from Trump, none of them get to move on. Anyone who supported or allowed this to happen needs to understand that this can't happen again. All the cowards, everyone, these guys too.
Steak and Shake says all locations will be, quote, RFK'd as they swap vegetable oil for a healthier beef tallow to cook their iconic shoestring fries.
We gotta remember, every corporation that rolled back their DEI efforts to appease Trump, every attempt to normalize the fascists that got us to this place. You just don't get to shit yourself and punch a wall at a party and expect to be allowed back in. And you certainly don't get to pick the music. And so these many grifters trying to say that Trump is bad now, or even trying to atone for their part in it, they don't get to play anymore. They were either lying or gullible and stupid, or most likely both. So why should they ever be trusted to talk about politics or the news anymore? Again, not talking about your grandpa or aunt or friend. At some point, we all have to make a personal choice about the level of forgiveness for the MAGA people in our lives. This isn't out of spite either. I mean, spite's fine too, but what's most important is what I said before. That Trump is exactly what these people wanted. Because Trump is everything that conservatives wanted to happen. He's not a bug, he's a feature. He's the feature. He's the show. All the cuts to vital agencies, the war, the racism, the fascism. It's all an extension of everything the GOP has believed in for the last however many decades. That's why it's so important for them to act like Trump betrayed them, or changed, or is being puppeted by demons. It's how JD Vance can shrug it off and run for president as if he wasn't a part of everything that happened. Oh, he was there, but he had concerns or whatever. Do not let them forget what they did. Any of them. All of these freaks who had a platform or power and used that power to support Trump. They all need a new job. They're done. Go make furniture or something. Drive boats. Who doesn't want to drive boats around? I love being on this boat we film from. That's right, we film on a boat. I go to the docks, drink stuff I find, and get on a boat and we film the episodes. On real film too. IMAX. That's canon now, so add it to TV tropes. Also, there are rats everywhere, and it is adorable. And they like keep dropping these like cute little tiny brown things. They just like drop these little brown things everywhere. They collect them into piles and it smells horrible. But you go to one of the piles and you go, it's really cute. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching. I'm so sorry for making light of the, the rats and the ships and the things going on, but the episode's about rats and ships. How could we resist? Come on! So make sure to like and subscribe, that'd be great. Make sure to leave a comment if you want, and if you do, make it nice. And check out our patreon.com/somemore-news. We've got a podcast called Even More News. We talk about the news twice a week here on the channel or the podcast place. You can watch this Some More News on the channel here, YouTube, or listen podcast-wise. This is going great. We've got merch. Bye.